So we'll kill a few seconds here at the start. If you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and fast forward it just a smidge. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I see Peggy Baker is here live with us. She has already donated via Super Chats. So she says, thrilled for us as we all ride along with Corey today. Thanks, Peggy. I got some glare on my screen. It was a little tricky to read that one. Hi, Carolyn. Thanks for joining live. See you there. And I'll let you all get settled in. Oh, Phyllis is watching from NYC, my old stomping grounds. Hello, Phyllis. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for taking time out from your vacation in New York there. You're in New York at definitely a very strange time with all the flooding that's been going on there. It's the city really got walloped. Hey, Marianne Borg. Again, Marianne, burning the midnight oil, or maybe just waking up really early. Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate you being with us. Jennifer Robinson is in Paris, outside the Lutetia. That is awesome. Just about 10 more seconds to let everyone get connected here. By the way, if you can hear me, hitting like on this video, if you would be so inclined, apparently really does help. I noticed that my videos that have more likes or thumbs up reach a lot more viewers, like twice as many views on those videos, just by clicking that like button. If you don't mind, I mean, you're not obligated to, of course. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks, Tara. It's good to see you here. Hi, Lisa. Lisa says sound is perfect. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Hope it remains so throughout. Okay, why don't we get started? We've got a brief moment of clouds here on an otherwise very hot day. So why don't we just get started? Welcome, everybody, to episode 124. This is the series that brings you live on the streets of Paris in real time. If you are watching me as a live viewer right now at the moment, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And note that, as usual, the super chat function should be available in the chat box for that little dollar sign that you see. And that is a very instant, spontaneous way to support the cause, and I always appreciate that. And also, I'll say one more time, if you don't mind giving this video a like, just hitting the old thumbs up button doesn't cost you anything, but I have found statistically that when my videos are liked a little bit more, they get spread out to like twice as many viewers. So that's just the way YouTube works, so you can help me out by doing that. Okay, here we are. We are at the Rue de Vaugirard. Technically, it's not exactly what we're looking at here, but this is one of the very early things that I want to show you, this beautiful little park. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But the Rue de Vaugirard, we're in the 6th arrondissement right now, and we are going to head into the 15th arrondissement eventually, is where the street will take us. And the Rue de Vaugirard goes that way to the Latin Quarter along the Luxembourg Gardens, which you see all leafy and lush on the right-hand side. And then Vaugirard continues in that direction with lots of beautiful architecture and history. And that's where we will be riding our bike today. It happens to be the longest street in Paris, clocking in at 4.3 kilometers, which is about 2.7 miles. And of course, being the longest street in Paris, it's perhaps no surprise that it's one of the most historic and one of the most visually appealing as well. So it goes through the 6th and the 15th arrondissement in this direction all the way to the edge of Paris. We probably won't travel that much of Vaugirard today, but as you can see, it's a very, very warm Indian summer type of day. If you're allowed to say Indian summer these days. I don't even know if that's PC, but... And what we're going to start with right here is a leafy little park. It's a great time of year to be here. Lucien says it's like Broadway in NYC. So we're on the street here, the Rue de Vaugirard. That was an old Roman road, so it could be well over 2,000 years old. In fact, speaking of the Roman times, a little bit that way, in some of the courtyards, you'll even find old Roman wells. And down this way in a private courtyard, there's even an old oven, a Roman oven from 1800, 1900 years ago. So what are we looking at here, though? What have we been looking at all this time? This is called the l'Allée du Séminaire. And it's a lovely leafy walkway with a dog park and a great fountain that I thought we would use as a detour here. This is the dog park in front of us. And let's got my bike here. So why don't we hop on this thing and tool around a bit. Luckily there is a little bike path along the side here, so I can show you a bit of this. It's the dog path, or the dog park, I should say. I wanted to show a lovely little fountain that's tucked away here. That's been around the block. This is one of those fountains that's been relocated a couple of times. This is called the Fontaine de la Paix, or the Fountain of Peace. It's from 1810. It was one of 15 fountains under Napoleon Bonaparte when he was trying to redirect fresh water to the city. It was originally designed to be at the Place du Châtelet, which is a very, very large square in the center of Paris. But this rather modest fountain was deemed not quite grand enough for the Place du Châtelet, so they eventually installed it at Place Saint-Sulpice before it had its fountain. And it was there for a little while, and then it got moved to the nearby Marché Saint-Germain, the Saint-Germain market in the area. And then from the market, years later, it was moved here. There are lovely, let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. Thanks, Laura Miralez, for the support and the super chats. So that you can see that's for the sciences and arts. It's actually dedicated to quite a few things. Agriculture. Peace itself. This was in honor of this fountain in honor of a very, very short-lived treaty between France and Britain. Britain signed the treaty with France, and then about a year later they declared war on France. And this, of course, is commerce. Thanks everybody for joining live. I'm really happy to have you here along the Rue de Vaugirard, longest street in Paris. And you can see there's a motif of water, icicles, however you want to translate that, and then the basin for the water. Now you notice here that, let me show you here. You see how the basin, the edge of it is protruding out quite far, which means if you imagine 100 years ago or so trying to actually get water for your home or whatnot, it would actually be hard to access and get to the water, if you can see what I mean there. Oh. So for that reason, this was probably meant as a fountain that was a little more decorative rather than utilitarian. You could have taken water from the basin, but at the same time, not the easiest way to get a hold of water. And that's the Fontaine de la Paix, the Fountain of Peace. Let's get back on Vaugirard proper. Incidentally, that fountain that was under Rue Bonaparte, or under Emperor Bonaparte, is on the Rue Bonaparte, you can see. So we're on Bonaparte Street, which is rather fitting. I'm going to zoom in here. If you can see, we've got carved street signs, the original version of the street signs carved by hand directly into the limestone. Those of you who know me, you know I'm always a fan of that. Let's get back on Vaugirard. You're going to see it's weather-wise, a picture-perfect day. Actually quite warm for September. I want to show you this. Some of you may recognize this. Ah, voila. There's a nice demonstration of the man. So this is the Hungarian Institute. And the artist here, his name was András Lapis. And he donated it. The artist donated this to the Hungarian Institute. there is a sister version. There's another version of this exact sculpture in southern Hungary. In bronze. And the sirens. We're going to cross here. Just take a quick break on the sidewalk here. That's where we started. Oh, sorry. Here at number 58 of the Rue de Vaugirard is where the Fitzgerald lived famously. F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife Zelda and their young daughter lived here in 1928, just the spring and the summer of 1928. It was a rather short stay. But the daughter was loving it because she could use the Jardin de Luxembourg as her own personal playground and front yard. The Fitzgerald, it wasn't their first address in Paris, but when they decided to stay here on Vaugirard, it was mostly because Zelda, the wife, was very much into learning and studying ballet. And there happened to be a famous Russian ballerina that gave lessons and had a ballet studio in this area. And so I think that's most likely why Zelda decided that she wanted to live here in this area. This building is really a corker as well. And while we're zoomed in, back to the Fitzgerald's building, the balcony of it, can you see there's a lone statue of some sort of a Greco-Roman god? And when we get a chance, we're gonna head over there, get a closer look. Absolutely stunning. Now this is, you're gonna have to bear with me because this is a very busy section of the street. So what I'm gonna do is park my bike here, show you the doors a little more close up without stepping in the street too much. The street will get calmer as we go today, but this section happens to be very, excusez-moi. I want to show you this right here is a bullet hole from the liberation of Paris. There were Nazis in this area, and the Allies had to come through in '44 and shoot up a lot of these buildings trying to flush out the Nazis, and so there happens to be a lone bullet hole. That would have been after the Fitzgeralds were in town, but back on the bike. Still in the 6th arrondissement, and we will be for a little while before we hit the 15th. We don't have to go too far for a little more architecture up here. More of an Art Deco feel. Oh, I just passed something important. Hold on, excuse me. Just right here on the left, beautiful, beautiful eatery. This is a classic facade called the Pont Traversé For a long, long time, it was an iconic bookstore that specialized in poetry and rare and used books. And it has this beautiful facade that we'll talk about in a moment. Very recently, the owner of this iconic bookstore retired and decided not to sell off the company, so it just closed up shop. And then the locals were quite sad to see this rare bookstore gone, and they were hoping that someone new wouldn't come in and ruin it and ruin the facade. And luckily they did not. Now it is a brand new coffee shop and épicerie, a gourmet food shop, and also an eatery where you could get sandwiches and quiche and granola and avocado toast and things like that. So a rather traditionally hip and modern coffee shop. They serve coffee from 10 Bells, which, if you know anything about good coffee in Paris, 10 Bells is definitely one of the very good providers of coffee, so you know that that's quality. And you can see the additional seating there. Sidewalk seating, which we're seeing a lot of in Paris these days. And the facade here luckily did stay intact. It was registered as a historical monument, so in fact the new owners weren't even allowed to touch it. So you've still got the old signage of the bookstore, and then in fact before it was a bookstore it was a butcher, and we can see evidence of that in the bull heads, for example, and the ram heads. So originally a butcher, and then famously a rare bookstore, repurposed now as a coffee shop. Let me see if I can catch you just a little glance inside. Without running over this lovely lady. Okay. There you go. Le Pont Traversé, one of the newest coffee shop eateries to arrive in town. And on the gastronomic theme, just kitty cornered across from it, at that corner, the bakery called La Parisienne, in 2016 won the best baguette in all of Paris. So I'm not sure if that new coffee shop's getting their bread and pastries from this bakery, but if they are, that's yet another reason to go check it out. We've got a street called Rue Cassette that intersects, and up here we've got a cassette, old school. Someday in the distant future, or not too distant, if younger viewers are watching this on the replay, they might not even know what that thing is. But some artist, I don't know if it was Invader, I tried to scan it on the Invader app to see if it was authentic. It looks a little bit off, it doesn't quite look like his usual style of materials, but it is what it is. Invader does like to do that. He likes to take the names of streets and create something that is a play on that. Thanks for the thumbs up and the likes, everybody. It really, really does help support the cause. For some reason, YouTube really likes it when people click the thumbs up. And my videos that have a lot of likes get exposed to a lot more people as a result. So if you are so inclined and you want to hit the like button, please do that. Next, we've got a major historic address. If you'll just allow me to park my bike here for a moment so we can get a good look. This is a church called Saint Joseph des Carmes, or Saint Joseph of the Carmelites. And it is accessible, not just not via this courtyard at this address. The Carmelites were a religious order that came into Paris in the 17th century, arrived here under the protection of Queen Marie de Medici at the time, who happened to have a palace famously at the Luxembourg Gardens, which still exists. That same Queen, Marie de Medici, came here in 1613, and she posed the first, or placed the first stone of the foundation, grand ceremony and such. So 1613, this puts us in the beginning of the Baroque period, at least for Parisian architecture, and in fact this has been described as the very first truly Baroque church in town. This church was the site of a very sad event during the French Revolution, something called the September Massacres in 1792. An angry mob of revolutionaries, trying to give you the best view here, angry mob of revolutionaries imprisoned many priests, Catholic priests, inside the church. It turned it straight up into a prison cell. And then in September of 1792, infamously, the angry mob showed up, took all the priests that were imprisoned here, and set up a sort of a mock tribunal and demanded all of the priests renounce Christ and renounce their religion and pledge their allegiance to the new republic of the revolutionaries. And many of the priests refused to do that, and they were instantly murdered in cold blood behind this church in the garden. 116 priests murdered by the very voracious, angry, revolutionary mob. For that reason, it's very difficult to get access. You have to ask for private access, but down below there's a crypt underground in honor of those priests with some of the remains of the bones and the skulls on display. It's almost a mini catacombs that a lot of people don't know about here underneath Saint-Joseph-des-Carmes. There also happens to be private rooms that I was lucky enough to visit a few times where you can literally see what they claim is a blood stain from the weaponry that was used in 1792 to murder the priests. You can literally see the drip of blood going down the stone wall, and they've preserved it. Inside this church, even if you don't make it inside the crypt, you definitely want to check out the artwork in there. Marie de Medici, who was the queen protecting the Carmelites here, also was a big fan of the painter Rubens. As you may know, there's a famous cycle of Rubens paintings that were commissioned by Marie de Medici. Well, what she did was she had Rubens bring his students in, and his students largely decorated this church. So the interiors are spectacular, and if you ever get a chance, you just got to go around the corner and find the proper entrance. For those who are keeping notes, here's the proper entrance if you want to access the church. Ooh, that sun is beating down upon me. Very, very warm day today. I saw some super chats come in. Thank you, folks. I didn't have a chance to see exactly who it was, but I will check on that later. I appreciate the support. Thanks so much. We stop right here before I forget. A gentleman by the name of Branly. Sorry, my screen is totally... The sun is blasting my screen. There you go. Mr. Branly here at this address. The text tells us that he discovered radio conduction, which would lead to wireless telegraphs eventually. Quick glance down the street here. Ooh, I am hot. I am hot. Here we go. I want to pause here for some architecture. Lisa asks, as in the Quai Branly? Yes. There is a border of the Seine River called the Quai Branly, and when they built a museum on that Quai Branly, they gave that name to the museum as well. So for a long time it was called the Musée du Quai Branly. So that's, you're correct, Lisa, you're recognizing that name from perhaps the borders of the Seine or the museum itself. This is the Catholic Institute, and you can see quite a beautiful building all the way down. Look up top too, we've got a sort of country style rooftop there. Thanks, Kate, for the super chat. I appreciate that. And Elaine as well. It's so bright out here, I'm having trouble seeing my screen, but I'm not complaining. I know generally where to point the camera, so we should be good. Back on the bike. You know what? Because we're on the bike here, I want to just a quick detour down the Rue d'Assas or d'Assas, because there happen to be two beautiful leafy bistros on each corner. These little cafes here. I just think they're really lovely. So there's that one on the left, and this one here. And especially if you view them from the intersection itself. This one's called Georgette, and it's very, very popular, very highly rated. You can't go wrong eating at Georgette, for sure. Ooh. Cute florist here. And then here on the right side, number 86 and 88 is in a previous building on this spot, Victor Hugo lived with his very new wife at the time. Let me pull over. Very new wife at the time, and they had just gotten married at Saint-Sulpice, beautiful church of Saint-Sulpice. So not this building, because they were here in the 1820s, and I'm pretty willing to bet that this building looks newer than the 1820s. But on this previous building, Victor Hugo and his brand new wife Adele lived, along with their daughter. They had a daughter who was born here by the name of Leopoldine. And Leopoldine infamously died when she was 19. She drowned in a sailboating accident with her husband, I believe. They were just sailing down a river, and a huge gust of wind, a storm came in and blew over their sailboat. And you can imagine in the mid-1800s how those women were dressed. Falling into a river was no bueno. We are going to continue our way along the Rue de Vaugirard. The old Tour Montparnasse. And now, at least, as you'll see, we finally get our proper bike lane. So at least now we can get away from the traffic, and all we got to do is avoid other cyclists. Which is its own challenge, but better than dodging cars. I know we've got the sun right in our eyes, so I hope that some of the details are coming through for you. I'm going to take a right here. There's something, a surprise awaiting us here around this corner. An Art Nouveau surprise. Look at this building here. Ooh. The first time I came across this, I was like, what? Who put this here while I wasn't looking? Art Nouveau masterpiece from 1904. This is by an architect called Paul Aucher, and he built several buildings in France in the early 1900s, but this one is the one that has the most of a classic early 20th century Art Nouveau feel to it. And hopefully you can make out the beautiful mosaic signage. Pâtisserie, brosserie, parfumerie, fruits, etc. And it's an absolute gem. It was, perhaps not surprisingly, looking at this architecture and the shape of it, it was a grand department store by the name of Félix Potin. And Félix Potin was a brand of retail stores where you could essentially buy anything under the sun. And for a while it thrived as a retail outlet or retail store chain. Again, the signage here. Danielle says, ooh, I'll take mosaics anywhere. Tara Back says, love this. So special. Even in the paneling underneath, you can see there's a motif there. This was the first department store to use reinforced concrete as a building material, which was very new in the early 1900s, at least in this neck of the woods. And it's a reminder that Paris really was, and perhaps still is, the absolute world capital of department stores. No city did department stores like Paris. Nowadays there's a Zara clothing store in the bottom, and upstairs is office space and perhaps a little bit of residential space as well. So it's no longer the grand department store it once was. But when we get to the corner, I'll try to give you a better view of that beautiful structure on the corner there. Technically, this store is on the Rue de Rennes, just off of Vaugirard. And I think what I'll do is safely cross the street in a moment and give you a better look. Okay, we got the light. Let me just wrap you around real quick, if you don't mind. And there we go. Very, very backlit. I know it's probably very dark for you. There you go. I can barely see it myself on the screen. But it is quite a gem. Let's back onto Vaugirard. Beautiful corner cafe. Look at this. Man, so good, so good. All right, back on Vaugirard. Sometimes even when you hit the bell, they don't notice. Really interesting detail coming up here. Sometimes you got to look very hard for the details. because they're not always very obvious. Here is a great one. Let me park my bike for a minute. Great. Just right here, you notice it doesn't look like much. Big slab of granite here. But what it is the French call it a bon. It's like a mile marker. And under the reign of Louis XIV, he ordered these all across France as mile markers or kilometer markers, or at least the version of kilometers they had back then. It happened to be called a lieu, or a demi-lieu in this case, half of a lieu. And what that meant was it was about a marker that you were 2 kilometers or so from the famous Point Zero, the 0 point in front of Notre Dame. You know, they've got that plaque embedded in the ground in front of Notre Dame. And all distances are measured and were measured from that point in front of the cathedral. So right here you've got number 1, because this was the first marker on your way leaving Paris toward the village of Vaugirard. The name of the street comes from the village that it once would lead you to. This is also the direction when you were leaving Paris years ago. You would head to the village of Vaugirard, which today is the 15th arrondissement. But you'd also, if you go further, you go to Versailles. So it would make sense that Louis XIV, living in Versailles, would want to have the highway, so to speak, towards his palace to be properly marked and properly monitored. So here's the number 1. So this is the first marker from Point Zero at Notre Dame, meaning about 2 kilometers or so. And then what was here was likely a fleur-de-lis symbol in honor of the king. And of course, what happened to all the fleur-de-lis during the French Revolution? The mob came through and they gouged out and scratched out all of the fleur-de-lis. There may have been some text, some royal text and whatnot that was removed as well. But it's really a miracle this has still survived here. It's very random, but you can see eventually years passed and it got embedded into this wall. And the fact that it got embedded into the wall, I think, really protected it and saved it from just being removed. It happens to be solid granite as well. And granite is even harder than this limestone. So it's going to be around for another few hundred years easily. So very random little details, but they absolutely tell the story of this street and the city in general. Well, I want to take my bike here. Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver several things and not bother too many pedestrians. There's a great sculpted relief here. This is a school. It was originally a school of photography and cinematography. And now it's a school for something else. But look, beautiful relief. And in fact, I learned that the artist, the sculptor here, put himself as a self-portrait of this gentleman here drawing on the right. Cute little garden here. Let's gently bring ourselves back into the bike lane. Back into the blasting sunlight. This is one of my favorite buildings of this area. This is one of the buildings that prompted me to even create this tour for you in the first place. These beautiful green ceramic bay windows. This is from 1891. So you can consider this a sort of early Art Nouveau, which, if you recall, we've talked about this before, just the fact that you were combining materials like limestone and brick and iron and glass and ceramics was a very Art Nouveau concept. 1891. And the green color of the windows contrasts nicely with the red of the brick. I want to zoom in here a little bit. It's going to be tricky because there's a lot of traffic here. I got to find a way to do this safely. Sorry for that. So you've got the beautiful awning, and then the first bay window is actually a little bit smaller, maybe for the proportions of the door, and then the bay windows become larger just at the point where you've got the balconies there. And if I can get a little bit closer. Too bad we got this big white van right in the center. I'm going to zoom in on something here. Here on the third floor, inside the bay windows, I don't know if you can make it out, but there's a beautiful shell relief on the ceiling itself. Can you see that inside there? Amazing. And almost it looks like there's something at the bottom of the window, something like a little statuette of some sorts. It's just incredible. What we also have too is up here a very ornate version of where they would cinch the walls to the floor, where the floor meets the wall. If that was a weak point in the architecture, they would put this extra attachment there. And in this case, very ornate. And there's one on the other side as well. Sorry. So yeah, I just love this. Love it, love it, love it. Let's try to turn around. This is one of the more challenging episodes, practically speaking. Temperature-wise, too, I'm sweating the old buns off here today. Look at this. Just right next to that green one is it's not the same building, it's not the same architect. Oh, I forgot to mention, too, that this beautiful one here, the designer of it, the guy who commissioned it to be built, knew that a lot of the apartments would be destined for artistic residents. So that's why he went crazy with it. But yeah, back to this. Just another nice little flourish. Onward, down the Rue de Vaugirard. Nice hotel awning here on the left. Hotel Louison. More architecture up here. And then over here too, I wanted to show you this. Thanks so much for the super chat. I can't see who you are because it's so bright on my screen. I'm sorry. But I did see it come in, so thank you. I've never been blasted with so much sunlight. Look at this here, even though I think it's been repainted and restored, but it says Commerce of Wine, Commerce de Vin. I think that's a really nice touch. In fact, the whole vibe of this cafe you're going to see, I'll show you as we go by. It's really, really hip and charming. Beautiful. Picture perfect cafe. La Marquise has got a great name as well. We're in the 15th arrondissement now. And there is a very rare occurrence that happens right here at this intersection. If I stop us just right here, you'll see in the distance, you get a view of the Eiffel Tower, which is lovely in its own right. But what's unique about this spot, it doesn't happen very often in the city, is that if I'm not going to move at all, but I'm just going to turn 180 degrees, and that is the top of the Tour Montparnasse. So you can see the two iconic towers, of course, one beloved and one not so much so. But the top of the Montparnasse at 6 o'clock, and then the Eiffel at 12. Nice little reminder that we're in Paris. All right. There is still certainly more Rue de Vaugirard in front of us. Longest street in Paris, as I said earlier. Got a nice facade over here. That's worth a stop. 117. And there's some goodness on this side too, but it's so blasted with sunlight. I don't know how much you can make out. The door is great. Cute little mini square here with a metro station. I like this view if you can find a combo of the sign and the trees and the architecture. You can see it's much quieter than where we started today. A little bit of breeze feels very nice. Oh, I got to give a shout out to two of our longtime viewers and supporters, Heather Jackson and James Jackson. They're celebrating a wedding anniversary this weekend. That's why they're not able to join live. But I wanted to say happy anniversary to you both. And as I was saying that, I forgot what I wanted to show on screen. But yeah, happy anniversary to Heather and James Jackson. Thinking of you guys, and hope you're having a wonderful day that you deserve. I don't know what to say about this, but it's just very interesting up there, all by itself. La da 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 da. I literally can't see my screen at all. I don't know what's going on up there. I might not be nailing the compositions today. I'll show you a couple more things here before we wrap up. Boy, these corner cafes, these restaurants are just absolutely hopping. If we stop here specifically, I can show you two things. There again, I know it's backlit, but in the 19th century in particular, all around Paris, all these advertisements were hand-painted as large murals on the sides of these exposed buildings. And they're very, very rare to see them because, you know, it would be so easy to just paint over them over the generations. But here, hopefully you can catch a glimpse of some overlapped lettering. And I can't even tell, there's so many layers of different ads, I can't tell exactly 18 Avenue Pasteur, but I can't tell what they were selling. Anyway, I just get a kick out of that. It's a total throwback to the 19th century and really a time-traveling type of vibe. And then the rooftop over here is the second thing. I believe this is an educational institution, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's a lycée, it's a high school. And this high school has something attached to the outside of it that is something rare, something that we don't usually see even on these live tours. It's a sundial. Right, let me find it here. I can't see anything. Okay, right there. This building, former cemetery, where in Les Mis, Jean Valjean was buried fictionally by Victor Hugo. But I guess I'll show you the sun. I'll be honest with you, it's so hot. It's a very hot day and I'm getting blasted with sun and I'm starting to feel pretty beat. This sun is relentless. Let me show you this building here though. This is really worth a look. Okay, everyone, I think we're going to end it here because I am just it's a very hot day and blah, blah, blah. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll look back towards where we came from, the Rue de Vaugirard. There's a lot more of this street. We could go on for another hour, but I think we'll call it good there. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much for the support and the super chats and spreading the word and whatnot. And thanks to those watching on replay as well. I appreciate you. And boy, I see a lot of super chats coming in. Let me see if I can try to give shout outs. Jennifer Robinson, thank you so much. That's very generous. Pam Moore says, these are priceless, Corey. Thank you for that, Pam Moore. And then very generous support from Sandra Hendricks. Thank you, Sandra. And if I missed your name, it's only because I couldn't see my screen in the sunlight today. But yeah, still a beautiful day visually, blue sky, and lots of sun bouncing off that beautiful limestone today. And I hope you enjoyed this one, folks. The Rue de Vaugirard, it's really a gem. And there is more than enough to keep us busy as flâneurs and lovers of history and architecture. Thanks to Ricky Beltran with the support coming in there at the last minute. I really appreciate you. And a view like this is like a moving postcard. You could just sit and watch this all day. So, cafe chat. Yeah, someone's asking about that. We will do... We'll do another bike ride if you like. I'll flip the camera on over in our private Facebook group as usual. If you're not a Patreon supporter yet, you can check out that link in the description, and there are other ways to support me via PayPal and Patreon. So take a look at that, and if you are already in our private Facebook group as a patron, then go ahead and pop over there in about 5 minutes and I'll take you along with me on my ride home. Thanks, Bonnie Turbeville, for your support. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'll see some of you over there in the Facebook group. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode. Take care. And if you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'll keep bringing it to you. I remembered the tagline. Finally, I did it. Boom. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.